That is like a song right there. Like
Thugs and Belly Tops. If I decide to rap, that's gonna be my single.
Oh yeah, it's over. It's over. But actually, I was hearing it more like a kind of like a Lin-Manuel Miranda, like Broadway kind of number, like thugs coming all different.
Like this has a lesson on the back end of it.
I think so, man. It's like, and so next time you think about judging somebody, just remember, this thug wears belly tops.
Yep. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another phenomenal episode of My Mama Told Me, the podcast where we dive deep into the pockets of Black conspiracy theories, and we finally work to prove that Soulja Boy had to wear those giant bathing ape clothes in his videos, apparently because of that giant penis he's been lugging around all these years. We thought the man was on cocaine, but nope, it's just the behavior of a man whose penis is half the size of his leg. Also, he's on cocaine. These are the rumors, the facts, I'd say, that I'm spreading. I'm your host, Langston Kerman, coming in foolishly as always. I don't think I've ever come in a way that is respectable or would make my mother proud, and yet I still use her for all of the branding of this podcast. I've attached her face to the logo without her consent, and I plan to keep it that way despite any frustrations that may cause in her personal life. I am excited today because my guest, he is not a foolish man like myself. He is a person who I would credit as one of my earliest inspirations as an artist. We met years and years ago, back when I was a budding poet in Chicago. He was one of my first teachers. He is a performer. He's a poet. He's a playwright. He does all the shit. And he inspired me very early on, and he continues to inspire so many. And he has a play, one of his plays, How We Got On, is actually premiering at the Sacred Fools Theater Company in LA, and it's January 28th to February 19th, 2022. So you motherfuckers better go see it. He's a dear friend. He is so talented. Please give it up for my guest, Mr. Idris Goodwin.
Oh my MG, man, what an intro! I feel like you should invoice me for that intro. That was incredible. Well, not only was let's just back it up. Like, so I'm just obsessed with Soulja Boy in general. Just like this nice. Generation of. I mean, I'm an old head, so like when Soulja Boy was Superman and them hoes or whatever, like I had my arms crossed and I was like, what did you mess? What did you mess?
This brother's ruining hip hop.
But now he's kind of starting to enter like grumpy old black man territory, and now I'm like, I get this brother.
He 100% is grumpy old black man territory. He just is continuing to do it in young people's spaces.
Exactly.
And so we won't flag it as grumpy old black man shit, but it's that's all it is being like, I did that first.
I did that first with Drake. When he did that Drake, I was like, you could hear a million black men over the age of 40 sit up and go, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Drake. Yes. Drake isn't that good. Suck a dick, Drake.
Yo, he like shot somebody?
Soulja Boy?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, no, one of my favorite YouTube videos of all time is his recounting of the shootings that transpired.
Yeah, he shot like 2 or 3
home.
people like who tried to break into his house or something.
Yeah, him describing the bullets flying past him like the Matrix was truly groundbreaking theater.
It was
the
almost
fact
as good
that you
as the
haven't
Matrix.
written a play about it is mind blowing.
Yeah, no, what like Hollywood better stop sleeping on Soulja Boy. Like, give this guy a platform, please.
They got to take him seriously at some point.
Well, you got to get him on your show.
I would love that. More than anything, I would love it. I don't know that we would be able to make it an entire hour. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things where you're like, fuck, I would love to talk to Soulja Boy. And then you talk to him for 15 minutes and you're like, fuck, why did I talk to Soulja Boy?
That would have like more parts than Trapped in the Closet. It'd be like 50, part 50. Oh my gosh. Anyway, that's longer than I think I expected to talk about Soulja Boy today. My bad.
Well, we have a lot of nonsense to talk about, but the Soulja Boy thing is not a terrible segue into the conspiracy theory that you sent our way. And it is not a nonsense conspiracy theory. It's actually a pretty haunting one.
I know.
If true, you said, my mama told me.
There was a secret meeting between prison industrialists and members of the recording industry to encourage the sale of gangster rap.
Yeah, these are facts.
Tell me more.
It's just, all right, so I consider this like the sort of hip-hop generation Willie Lynch papers, you know what I mean? Because there's like, I remember, we all remember where we were when we first read the Willie Lynch letter. And then when we found out it might not be true, it was like staggering. But then you're like, oh, they don't want you to know it's true, you know? And so similarly, this is like the hip hop generation, you know, just because there's truth in it. It's not hard to fathom at all. And even if it's not true, it's kind of still true. Like, you know what I mean? Some variation of that, like it happened on the on the spiritual level and like the collective consciousness level. Like they were talking, they may not have been talking to each other, but they's talking to each other.
Yeah. You know what?
So that's how they get you.
It truly is. I think you're absolutely correct that it truly is one of those things where it's like, I don't know that we've ever, it's something that's been in the lexicon, the hip hop sort of like stratosphere for forever. But it isn't necessarily something anybody's ever been able to pin down and say, for sure, it happened on this date this time with these parties. But you can kind of see the product of everything that people have been theorizing for years.
Totally.
And it's not so far-fetched that you think this is impossible. This cannot have happened.
Yeah. No, I mean, because when you think about the amount of people who are not at all anyway related, what shape or form to the world of the streets, you know, and how many millions of dollars they've made like off of it, you know what I mean? It's like, and it was a concern. It was like a noticeable shift where it like, I remember it went from like, hey, there's Kid and Play and there's the Beast Boys and, you know, there's NWA. And then suddenly it was just like everybody had a Mac 11 or was named Mac 11 or, you know, it just got so, but you could argue, well, that's just commerce, you know, like everybody, there's waves and but it hasn't really dropped off. Like we're still out here.
No,
it's still predominant, like, you know.
Even the Kanye backpack years were sort of sandwiched with like a different, it was more of a shift in the way that we talk about like, I guess criminality. It wasn't like gangster rap as much. It became like hustle rap. But hustle rap still was like, I'll murder your grandma, but I'll murder your grandma with style.
Exactly.
I'm not like kicking in the door anymore. I'll send a guy in to murder your grandma.
Hey. Yeah. And he's featured on the track. The Hot 16.
He won't be out long, but he's gonna rap real quick.
He'll be here in a minute. There he is. Yeah, man. So I don't know. I'm dying to know. But I've when the prompt came, I mean, there's so many. So like I walk around with all these theories all day. So first of all, I also didn't. I was like, how did I not know that you had this show? Of me, like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like,
sure.
First of all, it was a conspiracy that I didn't know that you had this show. I was like, first of all, they didn't want me to know. They trying to, you know. And then I listened to a few episodes, and I was just like, I don't see what the conspiracy theories are. This is all very this all feels on the nose to me.
That is one of the more interesting journeys in all of this is like a lot of times what it is a black person being like, this is something my mama said, and we just have to like pretend like it's not fact. We have to like go down a train where it's like, whoo, your mama wild when she theorized that the government had bad intentions for black people. Where did she come up with this stuff?
Oh, wow. Look at here. I just found an interesting article. But no, anyway, so I'm all over the place. But yeah, man. So but I remember it was when I first encountered it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
What do you remember the sort of like time period where you first started to hear that this secret meeting had taken place?
Oh, this was early. I remember this was very early on, and like this, it's post Friendster for sure. It might have been early Facebook. So somewhere between MySpace and Facebook, it started. So in the this is like this is like when conspiracy theories started creeping into good natured social media. So I wasn't as like been going somewhere with that bullshit. Like I was just like, because again, like I said, it's like it's not so far fetched, and you heard it in the music, like in the Dead Prez era, KRS One. I mean, they're always talking about hip hop police, and and there's always been that tension ever since Ice Cube tore into Jerry Heller, and like sort of lifted the veil back on the sort of racial dynamic of the record company owner and the rapper, and like who's really the pimp, who's the hoe.
Yeah.
And so this was just like fulfilling all of the fantasy, just like what you imagine happens behind those closed doors, right? Like,
I always think about conspiracy theories as sort of like, I don't believe that marijuana is any version of a gateway drug, but I do think that conspiracy theory kind of is that, like, it truly only takes one to really crack you open enough that you go, well, if that's true, a lot of these other things potentially could be true, or might lead me at least to consider them in a way that I might not have considered them before. And I think in that way, this one probably for a lot of people, and maybe like to your point, the Ice Cube of it all, or whatever it is, there are these small moments in hip hop where you go, hey, that's fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, that's not how you're supposed to treat people. And then you go, you're on MySpace one day and you read this supposed letter and you're like, whoa, okay, now everything's real. And this is all a grand conspiracy theory.
Oh, but you just remind me, there is another level to it too, which is the guilt factor in hip hop, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're like a person of color, a Black person especially. You love hip hop because you love you love all the shades and colors to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then and you love Spice One, and you love Compton's Most Wanted, and you love you loved 50, right?
Yeah.
And then you read this, and you feel like a little guilty. So in a way, it almost feels like, did C. Dolores Tucker and the Black conservatives cook this up to be like, so you just playing into the white man's play? Is it feel me? Is it like Crazy Cosby kind of like, you guys got to pull up your pants kind of, because you just playing right into the devil's play.
Whoa.
It's like,
okay.
remember when you were like in a high school, like in a school, like a mostly white school, and there was like the Black like administrator or assistant principal or teacher or whatever, and you be cutting up, and then they see you and they like single you out and be like,
yeah, they're doing that. We have higher standards for you, brother.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
yeah. It's just like, I see you out here just lollygagging with the white boy. You can't do it like that. You know they don't respect you, right? So now I wonder, was this story actually cooked up by conservative Black folks?
Whoa.
I don't
That's
know.
heavy.
I don't know. I don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe it.
Wait a minute. That's I think that's a legit question to be asking, is who is the creator, the source of this material? Because like you said, nobody's ever been able to pin down the participants here.
That's right.
It's always sort of been this like nebulous group of like powerful people. It's an Illuminati, just a taste of music Illuminati that sort of like came up with this idea. And to your point, maybe this is just a bunch of conservative Black folks who are mad at Bone Thugs being like, I know how we can get them. I know the plan.
We're not against rap. We're not against rappers, but we are against those thugs. Anyway, so I don't know. I don't want to believe it. But, to your point that like, that's crazy. Like when you said that, you're like, we don't know who was at that. Like, what would you do if you were just rando at a party, right?
Yeah.
If you were just like at a dinner party or something and somebody was like, hey, I was at that meeting. Like, what would you do in that moment? Like, would you take a picture with dude? Would you punch him? Would you ask questions?
I know for sure I would not punch them. I would be so curious. There's nothing in me that like Like, granted, they clearly are like, if in fact they are a real person who really was a part of this meeting, they are arguably as damaging to the Black community as drugs, as Ronald Reagan, as a lot of things that have sort of like come to be. But I think my curiosity would far outweigh my need to like punch him in the face and then get murdered in my hotel room later that night. There's no way you survive this shit.
No,
you know
really
what I
don't.
mean?
You really don't. But you'd be a legend though.
You'd be a legend for sure. And they'd also like pretend like you were on drugs when you punched them and there was no other logic. You know what I mean? They paint a different story.
They wouldn't be like, he out here trying to save hip hop. They'd be like, you know.
Yeah, they'd be like, this goddamn crackhead punched one of our great white Americans.
Oh, Shelley Whiteman. Sheldon Whiteman.
What do you think you would do? Would you ask questions? Are you punching? What are you thinking?
Oh, I wouldn't. I would not punch him either. I have too many questions. I'd want him to prove it. I'd be like trying to get info. I'd be trying to get intel. So I do the old hand in the pocket, press the recorder thing that happens in movies that never happens in real life because I don't know which is the recorder, but they always do. And then they do like the shot of the hand in the pocket, you know. And then I'd record, and then I'd be like, "You weren't there. All right, if you was there, then who else was there?" You know, I do that whole thing, and then I get the whole rundown of all the names, and then like Kill Bill, I go see.
Sure, just going person to person with a sword and a jumpsuit, chopping them up.
But even more. Okay, so this is really fun now. So first of all, was this Black folks who like came up with like, which is very possible.
Could this have been conservative Black people who sort of like hid behind this ominous white group?
It just was like once upon a time, because you know, Black folk, we love parables. We love like parables and like
sure.
That's how we school the next generation. You know, we love parables and morals and stuff. So is it like a parable? That's one. We'll just put that over here. But if it did actually happen, here's what I want to know. The record exec part I get because they love it because gangster rap is fun. It's not like please do more of this. You're like, okay, I was gonna do it anyway, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't nobody really wanting to do another X-Clan album? Like, let's be honest, you know.
Right, and to that point, it's
shout
not
out X-Clan,
as if
though. X-Clan's dope, but you know, I'm being them. I'm saying it's dope.
They're not listening, dog. It's fine. You can shit on X.
What if Professor X like Langston Kerman with a key? Anyway, sorry.
Another fine episode of My Mama Told Me. It does make me think, though, to that point, it's not as if people are saying that this secret meeting conceived gangster rap, right? They're not saying y'all sat down, y'all thought of this shit, you pitched it to the original murder rapper who then made it popular. They just saw a trend and then were like, yo, make that trend pop, as opposed to these other trends that were heading in a different direction.
But because crime pays, and that's what I'm wondering. If this did happen, who made that connect? Like, was this like an A&R whose daddy like ran a prison? Was there just like a warden who just like loved gangster rap and was just like, or just was like one day having his coffee in the yard and saw like a bunch of guys, you know what I mean? Like reciting gangster rap at the bench and was just like,
right.
You know? Like
I've got an idea.
Yeah, that's the dramatization I want to see. I want to see that little reenactment with this show. Can y'all do like a little animated?
I'd love to. Financially, no, we cannot.
Okay, get out of here.
I will say that there is something really interesting about what you're saying, because at its core, what you're suggesting at least is that the person who did this might have been a fan of gangster rap, that they are they're not coming from a position of hatred, which I think is how it's always been posited to me. And sort of like, I've always understood it as like, oh, this person hates Black people and hates gangster rap. And they wanted to find a way to both hurt us, but also increase value for themselves. And instead you're saying like, no, they were listening to this shit and they were like, play more and kill these niggas. We can do both.
Everybody wins.
Yeah. Let's get paid, baby.
Hey, man. Listen, there's more people in here. They're having a great time in the yard. You know. Yeah, that's the more complicated truth. See, people don't want to look at it that way, Langston. Everybody wants it to be, you know.
Sure.
You know. But what if it was?
It's all cut and dry, hurt and hate, and it ain't always that simple.
And who was and to go back to something you had said, who was the leak? Like, who was the leaker? Was there just like somebody undercover, you know, who was like in the room and like his conscience or her conscience got to her and she was like, I gotta tell the world. Like, who was the whistleblower? Was there like just an administrative assistant who was just supposed to be taking minutes, you know?
Right. She like filed it poorly.
Yeah,
and now
but
somebody...
she was like secretly dating Silk the Shocker or something.
Silk stuttered it out somewhere out at the bar.
Wow. Wow. It's ableist. That's ableist, Langston.
So here's my question for you, because in the MySpace, post-Friendster, early MySpace, Facebook era, you read this about this supposed secret meeting.
Yeah.
Are you immediately, I know you're saying like you're usually not like super conspiratorial, but here you are and you're like, this isn't that far of a stretch.
Right.
Are you then taking this to your peers? Are you then like, gather round, gents, I got some shit that I want to tell you about? Or are you sort of like, I'm going to sit on this and see how much it sort of gains its own
It definitely got like shared around. I may or may not have shared it my damn self, but like definitely, yes, it was a thing. It was hot for like a little minute. It didn't stay hot for long. And then it's one of those things too, where you hear it and you're like, oh damn, like Willie Lynch letter, you're like, oh damn. And then like some time goes by and you don't see it. And then it comes up again and you're like, yeah. And then some time goes by and then you're like, it's being discredited as like a myth. And you're like, yeah, I kind of knew it was bullshit, right? And then some years go by and it comes up again. You're like, oh, this shit again?
Right.
You just become tired, like, who cares? Like, yeah, it probably did happen. Who knows? Who cares? Like, you know, the world
it is sort of like the challenge of, or not even the challenge, but the sort of like the excitement of youth, right? Like at the end of the day, so much of the things that I'm passionate about are really more the result of me being young and having the energy to be passionate about them.
Yeah.
And now even when I see awful things that are sort of happening in the world around my community, there's a part of me that's too bored and exhausted with all of it to even do something about it. I'm just like, you're right. They probably should have figured out these COVID tests, but oh, what you gonna do? Here we are.
See, you know what it is when you're, when you're like a kid, or if you got siblings and stuff, you've got this sense of fairness, and you're like, that's not fair. And then when you say that, adults like usually do something, right? More or less, not all the time. Like sometimes they're like, life's not fair. It's not fair that I got to go to work all day for you little kid, whatever. It's not fair that your daddy got gout, whatever. And then as you get older, you realize like fairness is just like a concept. Like it's just an idea. And like it's a lot of work to be fair. Like, it takes like time and meetings and like all sorts of stuff to get justice and fairness. Right? And so whether it's true, whether it wasn't true, it's like we'll never know. And even if we did know, I mean, if we did crash that party and find, with Shelley Whiteman and whatever, and they were like, yeah, we did it. We had a meeting. We made lots of money off of those Ghetto Boys albums. We'd probably just devolve into like, yeah, that shit was good though. Like,
right, and
that's that one line. Yeah.
That's the crazy part, right? Is at the end of the day, even if that is true, right? Yeah. To your point, even if we find out that all of this is true, what are you going to see that and then opt out of listening to all of these artists that help promote gangster rap?
You are not going to. And then you start getting into gradients where you're like, well, the Locks is like, they lyrical, but they're like more street though. So they not like,
them murders got metaphors in them. We can rock with them.
You're like, well, but that's a classic though. I mean, you start right. Like, and that's the thing about this conspiracy is that like, it wouldn't have been a thing if it wasn't a thing. So the people it's not like they were like, oh, we gotta, like the later hosing industry didn't go and the accordion industry didn't go and say, we need some more of this polka shit. Because it's hot. Like it's like it was already hot, right? Like
no, it's you know what it is? It's high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're fucking addicted to sugar.
Yes.
Whether they push it on us or they don't.
That's right.
They just happen to find a concentrated way to push it on us. And is that right? Absolutely not.
Nope.
But does that then make us some sort of like different group of people who may have been able to like never get diabetes and avoid all of this shit? Probably not. Shit tastes too good. You know what I mean?
We would have just sucked the corn. It's just like when you squeeze it. Yeah. No, these are facts, man. These are facts. I feel like we turned this into like a very, it's all futile kind of thing. I feel like
Yeah, no,
we
it's a little
started this.
nihilist. We're not we're not giving the listeners hope yet, but maybe there's hope on the other end of this. Maybe there's something we can send them home with that's gonna make them feel all warm and good about their gangster rap. You know,
Mm.
we gangster rap with hope. That's what we're working
Hey.
on for the rest of this episode.
NWH.
Niggas with hope. I think that's got to be the name of the episode at this point. It's going to be great. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more Idris Goodwin and more My Mama Told Me. And we are back.
We're not going to let Joe Biden and Kamala Harris cut America's meat.
That's dead on that. That's dead on that.
Yeah, we're back here with more My Mama Told Me, more Idris Goodwin. We're still talking about the possibility that there was a secret meeting held between music execs and prison pipeline experts who masterminded the sale of gangster rap to urban youth. Do you think that with that, and this I think it is going to help us get into some of this research, that they were specifically assuming that this music would only appeal to Black and brown people? Did they ever consider the possibility that there was some white child who would eventually fall in love with this music?
You know, this is the real spill of it, though. I mean, of white supremacy. And I say this kind of like, you know, it's like when you see a boxer who's like, you know, like I'm going to go face this person. And like, I know fully well when I get in the ring with this person, they're going to try to murder me.
Yeah.
And I kind of strangely respect that, but like, I got to prepare myself to face this person. So I've gone through many phases of like kind of reconciling myself and preparing myself to face white supremacy every day. And the premise and what empowers me to not waver or get into there's two sides, right? Is that the basis of white supremacy is the belief that, you know, anyone not white is lesser, but also that Black people are inherently just violent and criminal and just uncivilized. So yeah, their premise is that a civilized white person can listen to gangster rap and be like, interesting satire. Oh, interesting, you know.
Yeah.
Because they like it too. They always have, right?
Right.
They always have. But, you know, they're so civilized and sophisticated that, you know, they're not going to, they can understand it for entertainment. But whereas, yeah, the belief was that this is just background music for our criminal activity already. Like we was already out doing drive-bys and we're like, I need the right song to be the score to this murder I'm about to do. So like, let me look through go through my catalog. And
I can't murder without a beat. I need a beat.
Man, turn off that Shostakovich. Go get me some. Put that Spice One on. So yeah, I mean, it's a very racist. It's steeped in all the garbage.
Yeah, it's so fast. I think that's a fantastic way of putting it, that it's not a concern of whether or not white children were going to listen to it, because at its core, you believe that white children will not be swayed by it,
right? The
same way that these poor Black and brown children were inherently going to be moved by the music that they were listening to.
And here's what's super ill too, man. I mean, if you go to the history, I mean, if we gonna get right down to it, I mean, you think about like quote unquote chain gang music, right? Like, yeah. I mean, and how chain gangs just it was like just vagrancy. It was just like, we're gonna like burn your towns down, take your houses away. You can't vote, can't get no damn job. And so brothers would just be walking down the street because they, you know, and they would be like, oh, you're a vagrant, so I'm going to put you on this chain gang for 50 years, right? And brothers started singing, and some white man recorded that and made money off of that. And so if you think about that correlation's been there from Jump Street. So but, you know, the other piece of it too that just occurred to me now that we're talking is, do you remember that song by Akon? You got me locked up.
Locked up, yeah.
And I remember, I kind of like that. Like, I didn't like that song, but it's like you hear it and you're like, I don't hate that song, you know? And I remember the woman I was dating at the time saying something like, they got these, you know, they got these kids, like, you know, singing that, right? Like little Black kids are singing like, oh, it's cool that, like, you know, prison prison aesthetic started coming into the music videos, or like D Block and like, you know what I mean? Like the sagging pants. I mean, there's so that aesthetic and that correlation's always been there. But I think the thing we can't ever lose sight of is really like there's always been that correlation, and that's who's. I mean, they make the bread off of the numbers, right? Black and brown, and so we're joking, and because it is kind of absurd the theory, but yeah, I mean, the real spill of it is this like. Whether this was true or not true, again, it's true. Like,
Right. Yeah. What you're saying reminds me so much of that. And I realized it was very much a response to what was already a trend of like in the mid 90s of selling like literal like prison jumpsuits as like fashion. Yeah. And then there's that Fresh Prince episode where like Will like gets his hair twisted and buys like the prison jumpsuit. And Uncle Phil tells him like, you're looking like a gangster. This is going to like lead you down the wrong path. And then he ends up getting into some like weird like police altercation because of the way that he looks. And it was all meant to be this important allegory to teach us to be more responsible, I think, with the way that we carried ourselves in society. And it's all a fucking yucky lesson. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like,
a yucky lesson.
We're shaming in a lot of ways the people who are merely responding to a choice that a bunch of capitalists at a much higher level decided, they made choices. And then we go like, man, if only you wouldn't have put that jumpsuit on and twisted your hair, you would have stayed out of trouble.
The hoodie. Yo, did you see, this is totally rando, but I've been just telling it, bringing this up everywhere because I thought it was like the best thing I saw last year was that Colin Kaepernick show, that Colin in Real Life.
Oh, Colin in Black and White.
Colin in Black and White. And that whole, and I loved how like the first episode was all about hair. And like him wanting to get the braids and look like AI, and his parents being like, "Yo, you look like a thug." Like that was I had never seen that on TV. But then you brought up this Fresh Prince joint. I'm like, wow, it's kind of a similar thing of just like the way you do your hair, which is so silly, right? Like,
yeah, and it truly at its core, right? It's the irony of it all is you look like a thug because a bunch of people outside of your community created those associations, not because thugs created those associations. Right. I know thugs that wear, fucking belly tops. Like they're truly thugs come in all forms. Y'all created these associations. All right, let's jump into some of this research because I think some of this is going to be helpful both for us and the listeners to ground this conversation.
Yes, sir.
The original, while this obviously is a conversation, I think that's circulated, as we said, for years and years around the hip hop community, this source that I could find, at least, that sort of cites where this official conversation started came from a supposed letter, an anonymous letter sent to the site Hip Hop is Red on April 24th, 2012. 2012 is when apparently the official letter was sent. And this anonymous letter claimed to be from a person who was at this supposed meeting in 1991, where a number of music decision makers met at a secret location. It was a home right outside of LA. 25 to 30 of them all joined together, which that was a larger number than I think I had ever anticipated. I thought it was like a more like 8 to 12 kind of energy, but it was 25 to 30 music executives and then 5 people who they said were extremely antisocial and that none of them recognized. And then those 5 people ended up, after being led by one of the music executives who had sort of organized the whole thing, ended up taking over the conversation and, like we've been saying, encouraging everyone to start to invest in gangster rap because these corporations and the lead executives had already built relationships with private prisons. And subsequently, by promoting gangster rap, not only could they increase the wealth of those corporations, of these music industry corporations, but they could also personally gain a bunch of wealth by sort of doing like blind investments in these same private prisons.
Yeah, that shit happened. That shit happened. I totally see it. That totally happened. Especially, I didn't know it was that far. That it was 91? Oh, it happened. Totally happened.
Yeah. So 1991
No
is when
question.
it supposedly, this meeting took place.
That's a year before the riots, no?
I believe so,
Fam,
yeah.
that shit totally happened. Someone has to really talk about how conservative California is. People be thinking California is like, there's some scary whites out there.
No, I think it's terrifying how conservative California, and terrifying is a weighted word, but it is haunting how much we pretend as if this is sort of like this liberal haven. I listened to this podcast by this dude, Robert Evans, called It Could Happen Here, where he sort of explores the possibility that like we actually are much closer to civil war than we think that we are. And it's part of like the American agenda to keep us believing that we're like better than every other country that sort of like finds themselves murdering their own citizens. That said, one of the things he points out is that like most of California is actually controlled by like the food and water supply of California specifically is controlled by like very conservative, very rural towns in Northern California. And if at any point they decide to sort of like pull back from the Californian community, then we are basically cut off and we will literally be fighting in the streets over like coffee and fucking eggs and shit.
Okay. So let's write that pilot. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, that's real spill though, man. I mean, people don't realize, but like, I mean, not far. Like you go to the OC, you go out, it's all these little towns just sprinkled with just like, just like very, very traditional, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I think it happened. I don't know what you think, but I like when you read that description with the details, I was like, oh yeah, never mind. I believed it then. See, when you read it just now, I got the same feeling I did back in the day. I also read that before 2012. That was definitely out there before 2012.
Yeah, I think the conspiracy existed before 2012, and then the letter was, and this person says it in the letter where they said, I've been sitting on this for years. I've heard people talk about this for years, but it's finally reached the point where I feel like I need to step up and say what I know. Ooh. They also spend the entire time saying that I'm too fearful for my life and safety to actually name names in this thing. So I will keep everybody anonymous, including myself. They also talk about, you asked the question of like, did everybody just go along with what was presented? They talk about the fact that when this was originally sort of like initiated in the meeting, that number, I think they said 3 people stood up like, what the fuck are you talking about? And were immediately escorted off of the property and basically erased from this conversation, and not murdered, but just certainly like made to keep quiet in that way. And also everybody had to sign NDAs. So that's part of the argument for why it's never, ever come forward.
Do you think Quincy Jones was there? Because Quincy Jones has been everywhere.
And that's the part, I love that you asked that. I really do, because that's the part that's always bugged me about sort of the way that it's presented, is it makes it seem as if, and I think this is also some of the bamboozlement that Black people often do to ourselves. It makes it seem as if this was just a collection of proud white men coming together to do proud white men things. And it's like, nah, this was rich people coming together to do rich people things. True. And so there's it's real possibility. Mostly white people, absolutely. There was, if any, it was a sprinkling. But that sprinkling is very much representative of what that class of people is, right? Yeah. At a certain point, you get rich enough that it doesn't matter who's on the other end of your decision making. You just want more money.
Yeah, these are facts. And so that brings us back to the conservative. No. Okay, so I think we're both agreed that this totally happened. Now the question,
I think so.
Now the question is who were the people of color in that room? How do we get to them? Are they still alive? Who were they?
That's
was it
the
L.A.
hard part.
Reid? Was it?
I think you got to put L.A. Reid in the room. If we're talking music in the early 90s, I think you got to put L.A. Reid.
Babyface was probably up in there.
Yeah, I think Babyface was maybe on like a speakerphone. You know what I mean? I don't think he was there. I think he's a little too front facing that they couldn't put Babyface in the room, but they were like, we'll let Baby listen in.
Like put baby, we gonna just we're gonna hang out with you. We'll call you right back. We gotta get into some.
I think they had this meeting, and then at some point they were like, and now a performance from Babyface. And he played When Can I See You Again on the guitar over speakerphone for everybody to listen to.
That's hilarious.
Okay, so one of the things that sort of like popped in my head as I was reading all of this, because the writer remained anonymous. He said that he stayed in the music industry for another 2 years. And then he says eventually that like the sort of weight of what he knew and the shift that he saw from, the sort of like Fat Boys into the Biggie Smalls was too much for him to handle. And he couldn't do it anymore.
Wait, what? The Fat Boys to Biggie Small? Wait, why? I'm not sure who he's dissing there.
He didn't say them specifically.
He's just like, they're both fat. Like
he was like that. Those fat ones are nice, and this fat one's mean.
He just want to eat. He want to eat and kill and make intercourse.
So he said he had to get out of it. But one of the things that sort of immediately felt like I had to ask myself, and I needed to then ask the internet, is there a correlation between rap music and crime? Like, is there any evidence of there being a correlation between rap music and crime? And I cannot express enough how much of a fucking dork you feel like when you have to type into Google, does rap music lead to violence?
Yo, who's your man? Who's the dude with the conservative Jewish guy with the?
Oh, I know, Ben
Shapiro.
Did
he just pop up first? Like,
he's like, yeah, it does.
You're like, does rap music, and then Shapiro pops up. And he's like, I'll take it from here.
I got it, big dog. But yeah, I had to type that in, and I'm terribly ashamed. But in doing that, I found this 2006 study from something called the Prevention of Research Center of the Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation, out of Berkeley, California. And it suggests that young people who listen to rap and hip hop are more likely to abuse alcohol and commit violent acts. Now, I should mention, again, this is from 2006. And so you have to take everything that happened in the early aughts with a grain of salt. But then one of the key points that they keep harping on are these studies that show the increased alcohol consumption related to alcohols promoted in the song. So, Pass the Cavassier came out and a bunch of people bought more Cavassier.
Yeah.
This is, they're pointing to that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of that correlation before I jump into what I already have made a bunch of conclusions about in my head.
I mean, I think it's kind of like, it's like kind of like a nothing burger. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, you're saying teenagers want like that. Haven't even been making that argument since like the 20s when white people were listening to like jungle music and smoking reefers, hot jazz, and like, it's just like, when you're young and impressionable, like, yeah, if you're a dumbass, then like you were stupid. We were stupid. They're like, the motherfucker in the song say like, I'm eating them mashed potatoes. We're like, nigga, let's get some mashed potatoes.
We want mashed potatoes.
It's just like you just are, and then you like become a person with your own. You're like, I gotta go to work. I can't eat mashed potatoes all day. Like, I gotta go have a life. And so I don't know. I'm like, okay, it's like there's a correlation between people smoking weed and then fucking each other and eating chips. Like, okay, wow, get this guy a Nobel Prize. Like, what?
Right. This isn't as much a study as you being annoying about a good time that some folks had.
You know.
Well, the other thing that popped in my head as I read that is like, okay, so maybe there is an increased sale in Cavassier, but you're not telling me there's more alcohol being sold overall. So that just means that like I hear Pass the Cavassier and instead of buying vodka, I buy Cavassier.
Exactly.
So the sale is still the same.
That's right.
It's just I'm making different choices because my boy Busta Rhymes introduced me to a new experience that I wouldn't have otherwise had.
Most people, I've been a bartender, okay? Most people don't have like this broad like people don't know. They just like, that looks pretty. Give me that. Like, it's like beer or wine and even when you say wine, They're not saying, "Oh, give me a Chateau 73." You know, they just like most people aren't really keeping up with. So yeah, if you hit them with, you know, drink this, drink that, you know. But I do remember also the amount of 40s that I drank as a teenager.
Sure.
Yeah, because of all the 40s I saw in brown paper
Right.
bags. And I'm like in the suburbs, you know, at like you know, Kurt's house, you know, in his finished basement. You know, we all got you know, so but you're just an idiot. You're just impressionable and stupid. And like, where have you been? What have you done? You don't know anything about anything. You're just doing what the older guys do, you know.
It
Like,
truly feels like they're trying to make lasting judgments on the behaviors of impressionable children.
that's right.
And it's not a logical progression, and it certainly misses a bunch of steps. One of the things that I think additionally is missed in all of this is that a study from 2002 actually found that Black kids statistically actually drink less alcohol despite being exposed to 66% more ads for beer and ale and 81% more ads for spirits.
Talk about it.
So we are literally being force-fed almost 100% more of the advertisements for these things, and simultaneously we are drinking less than our white counterparts, and that has to mean something, and it's not being calculated in them being like, well, Busta Rhymes said a thing and then y'all reacted.
Yeah, it's listen, Furious Styles had it right in Boys in the Hood, okay? When he took Trey and Ricky, okay, to that billboard, and he said, and he was asking those questions. He's asking the why is that's. And I remember I went inside that movie with a group of people, and the white guy in my crew just like rolled his eyes at that part. And the rest of us was like, huh. Right. So it's again, it's through whose eyes. And again, because white supremacy is very real. You know, the basis of all these arguments is, again, always to prove that there's something wrong with us. So you know, whether that be paternalistically or otherwise, it's like these people are immoral. They can't take care of themselves. Da 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 da. And they'll try. You know, so it's like there's also no leeway, right? So again, it's also in a weird way. What's so frustrating about the Uncle Phils and the Bill Cosbys? Well, there's a lot that's frustrating about Bill Cosby, but in this one particular thing that's frustrating about Bill Cosby is, in this context, is again this judging. Like there's no room for us to be just human and vulnerable and flawed, and like we like to have a good time, and you know we like to party, and like everyone enjoys vice, but does that mean there's something wrong with us? You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with us.
Yeah.
We just want to have a good time like everybody else, you know?
And to that point, it's also this cherry picking of the things that you want to be able to prove about us, right? Like nobody's going through Biggie Smalls lyrics and being like, there's been a massive uptick in Black people eating cheese eggs and Welch is great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we also rap about nonsense that nobody is then tracking the relationship with. They just go, all right, this nigga's rapping about alcohol, so this must be a bad thing.
Right. Yeah. He's also rapping about, you know, other things that, you know, are also positive and like, you know, having, you know what I mean, that enlighten us and expand our vocabulary. I mean, I know about other kinds of music. I know about the continent of Africa, you know, because Stetsasonic, you know, AFRICA, Angola, Soweto, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Zambia, Mozambique, and Botswana. Where's that study? Right. There's an uptick in Black kids from Detroit knowing countries in the continent of Africa thanks to Stetsasonic, you know?
These fucking kids are learning geography. We got to put a stop to it. So one of the things that really felt like it stood out in a lot of this attempt to create a correlation, and I read a few articles that try to place some kind of correlation, is that at its core, it feels like the bigger risk of the attempt at correlating these things is that you have to do it by ignoring every other factor that may have contributed to the way that this community functions, right? That if you're saying increased violence is happening in this neighborhood, you're also basically asking rap to be responsible for all of the factors that cause this increased violence while ignoring the systemic oppression that's happening in every other way. So that my school not having enough funding has nothing to do with it. It's just the goddamn hip hop that made me behave this way. And that's insane.
Snoop Dogg got all my pencils and erasers.
Yeah. It truly is a wild attempt at creating a relationship. And so one of the things that I felt, and this circles us back to the grander conspiracy at hand, right, is that while I do think that this meeting probably did happen, I don't think it was 25 to 30 people, if I'm being honest.
Oh.
I think it was probably like 5 to 6 people. And I think there were multiple meetings that took place. I think they went like sort of like group to group, person to person, and they only needed like 1 or 2 to buy into it each time to really like get their bigger plan going. That said, I don't think that this meeting is like the end all of everything that's happening. And this was just a small play in a much grander effort to like destroy Black and brown communities. Yes. You know what I mean? Like they did this and then they went and met about fracking. Yeah, they're not worried that much about us, that this was like the final chess move on our futures.
Yeah. Check the gangster rap stocks again. I mean, that's also like a very specific. I'm now wondering if you were at some of these Langston, and if you know stuff you're not telling me, because that's very specific. You're just like, I feel like they got into a Ford Expedition that was blue. They started at RCA, and then they went to Capitol, and then they got
had
lost.
Those little waters in the bag. Some of the fruity mints, some of the regular mints. I took the fruity. No.
But I don't mean me. I mean someone else who looks like
the
me.
Royal eye, right? That's an eye that we can make royal.
Royal eye. King eye. That's you're probably not wrong. I'll buy that. But now you're making me wonder, and I don't know if you've done this study, is like, was there statistically, right? Like if we look at 91 to let's say 2001 or 2011, was there an uptick? Did anything happen? And was it due to rap? I mean, I'm sure there was, just because that's just what they do. But is there any? If this did happen, like, did it work? Did some people say, Because I know there was more gangster rap, but was it because of this meeting? Was it because?
I mean, I definitely think more people were being put in prison,
right?
But we could also point to the what was the Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton
super predators.
Yeah, the jail law thing that bill that they put together. Like, I think there's a bunch of other crime bill, excuse me.
Was that and that was like 94, 92, 94?
That was early 90s for sure. And it's like,
so
maybe
you're saying
that
Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton were at that meeting?
I think we watched the meeting live on television, and we were all like, man, there must be a secret meeting happening somewhere, because we're fucking idiots. Like, I bet there's a secret meeting where they really doing stuff. It's like, nah, bro. They really will play this shit in front of you, and they don't give a fuck.
Yeah, the only secret was the deodorant that Hillary Clinton was wearing. Like, she actually said it on TV in front of all y'all motherfuckers. Yeah, very true. Yeah, but that was early in C-SPAN. You know, that was early C-SPAN too. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That wasn't like
that was C-SPAN 1.5.
It wasn't like after Family Ties. Like, it was low key. Like, we got the internet now, so we can go back, but like, that wasn't prime time.
No. It wasn't. It wasn't very popular, but it was effective, and they've apologized for it since.
You can't be, there was a lot of drafts of that. Like, meaning, you can't be like, we didn't know what we were doing. It's like, fam, you saw a lot of drafts of that.
Yes. And that's the part that I think is buggy about all of these things, right? Mm-hmm. Is that I don't, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, I don't think that we as Black people often give ourselves enough credit, or we give white people too much credit for how intelligent their sinister moves are. I think sometimes we make them into fucking these mad scientists who are able to like plot 18 moves ahead. No. And instead, I think that they are car salesmen. These powerful people are truly used car salesmen who are just trying to get an idea over on people. And if it works, they celebrate. And if it doesn't, they tuck their tails and they apologize a decade, 2 decades later, and
Thoughts
we
and
all
prayers.
move on.
Thoughts and prayers. Yeah, no, they're about as subtle as a marching band. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not lizard people. It truly is people with pet lizards. You know what I mean? Like it's a different vibe.
Still got bars. Still got bars.
We're going to take one more break. We'll be back with more Idris Goodwin and more My Mama Told Me. And we are back.
I got bronchitis. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, we're back here with more Idris Goodwin, more My Mama Told Me. We're still talking about the possibility that there was this secret meeting that forced gangster rap down our throats, and now we can't live without it, and all our daddies and brothers and cousins are in prison because of it.
Damn you, MC8.
Give me my daddy back.
Give me my daddy back, MC8. Sorry, little homie. Anyway. That
is one of the questions that I have for you is, do you think that the artists at some point became aware of any of this? Because that's another part of it that I think often goes overlooked is like, Ice Cube's a learned man. He's got a goddamn master's degree. Do you think at any point he went, oh shit, I'm a part of this. I'm helping to, and then he was like, fuck it, I'm in this too far. Or is he like,
I'm in this.
You know what I mean? Where are the artists?
I'm in this too. I can't do Ice Cube. I thought I could do him. I can't do him.
Yay.
Yeah, they asked Ice Cube, what do you think about this question? No, the artists, of course, were not it. Of course. Who would do that? Who would be like, hey, I thought you want these guys here.
I mean, to me, it's not that
of inviting MC Ren.
We watched Lil Wayne hug Donald Trump in a way that we haven't seen Lil Wayne hug a man in since he kissed Baby on the mouth. So a part of me feels like maybe there's a level of concession you make if there's enough dollar bills, y'all, on the back end of this.
I think Lil Wayne is also intentionally trolling us, though.
Okay.
I think he's trolling us. And that's how I feel about Ye as well. Like I have a whole thing. So there's this like epic, like the last play I write, sort of my career ending, my Irishman.
Yeah.
Is I'm going to do this epic freaking play about like self-hate, like just that, about like Candace Owens and Eazy-E at the Republican dinner and Lil Wayne and Ye, and like, cause I'm trying to understand them, cause I don't believe them.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird, but is that also me being racist? Like, is that also me being narrow in a way? Not racist, but is that me doing the thing they're saying? Like, don't put me in a box. I don't have to vote Democrat.
Right.
And it me being like, nigga, come on here and vote Democrat. Why are you playing? You know?
Right.
You're just trying to be different.
Yeah. That you're like, you know better. You're just trying to prove something instead of like, they truly aren't in the box and they are functioning in a space where they believe what they're saying is right.
That's right. But I don't believe it.
You're not bought into it.
Oh, at all. I don't.
I
don't buy it. Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to turn the show into like Idris and what he's working on. But
no, I actually think that this is better than the stupid stuff I come up with.
No, please, I want the questions though. No, I'm taking us all over the place. I'm just like happy to like talk to another Black adult. Anyway, sorry.
No, this is fun. This is the part of the episode where we always play a game.
I love games.
It's a fun game. It's a game called White Lies.
Ugly. You are disgusting. I'm going to kill you. Give me $200.
White Lies. It's a beautiful game where, Idris, I'm going to introduce to you a widely held conspiracy theory in the white community.
Yep.
And what I would love for you to do is just break down why you think white people are so committed to this conspiracy theory.
Got it.
Cool. This one's interesting. This is a fun one that I had heard pieces of in the past, but had not heard sort of like all compiled in this way before. But apparently there are some people who believe that Britney Spears, recently freed from her prison, Britney Spears is a part of a government cover-up, actually a series of government cover-ups. They believe that Britney Spears over the years during the mid-aughts was sort of responsible for taking some L's on the chin as a way of covering up specific meltdowns and issues within the Bush administration. So Britney Spears apparently endorsed, and you can see this in Fahrenheit 9/11, Britney Spears endorsed Bush in the early 2000s. And then a few things happened. So in 2004, weeks before the United States versus Libya trial, the Bush administration basically was going to be embarrassed in this trial. Instead, Britney Spears married someone and quickly annulled that marriage 55 hours later. In 2006, there are some people who think that when Britney was photographed driving with her baby on her lap and soon was to divorce Kevin Federline, that was a cover-up for Bush dumping Donald Rumsfeld. And then there are some people who believe that her tirade when she shaved her head and was running around with the umbrella was a cover-up for Al-Qaeda regaining power in Afghanistan, that all of these were orchestrated by the Bush administration to keep Britney as a distraction from the bigger play at hand. My question, again, Idris, is why do you think white people are so committed to this conspiracy theory?
Well, because white folk love Bush and they love Britney Spears. And so if there's a world in which those two, it's like fan fiction. You know, it's like, but they're like, it's two things I love, but like together, you know, it's like putting like a fried egg on a burger. It's like, you wouldn't think, but it could happen.
Right.
No, but actually people do put fried eggs on burgers. So this is probably even more wackadoo. It's like putting like, you know, like chorizo on a chocolate cake or something like that. You
right.
Know,
it's sort of
it could happen.
It's like when Scooby-Doo and the Harlem Globetrotters linked up. And you're like, I didn't know I like these two things together.
They're not even in the same universe. But like, so yeah, that's what it is. It's fun. It's like fun. It's fun to do that. Like that's like, because you know what's wild is like, I don't know anything about, like, I don't, like, everyone's like, Britney's free. I'm like, where did she go? What happened to her? Like, free from what? Like, I don't, you know, that's just stuff they be following. So yeah, that is my theory about why they want to believe that. It's because they want those two, you know.
Yeah,
linked.
it's funny you say that because so Britney has been freed from her conservatorship, which was her father basically had like cooked it up to sell her as crazy or mentally unstable in the courts so that he could be responsible for all of her money and freedom. She wasn't allowed to drive herself places. She wasn't allowed to access her own bank accounts. Her dad and family members were basically in charge of all of that. And it took a couple years, a long time for her to basically get like some level of like freedom from all of those things, right?
And you're saying that happened with Bush too, is that his family was also
now you're getting into some shit that I'm fascinated about, because when did that conservatorship kick in? It might have been right after Bush left office.
They got the same daddy. Oh.
He was like, I don't need this bitch anymore. Tie her up. Put her bank accounts on hold. I don't need her running her mouth or anything. Now you're doing the dirty work. I was about to get messy, but no, you did it. You nailed it.
Listen, I'm here to help.
This was great. This was a fun episode. Idris, could you tell the people at home where they can find you, what cool shit you have going on?
Oh yeah, man. So, you know, I'm always doing something. I'm always up to something. I love, you know, I'm embracing this digital virtual moment we're in, trying to figure out, you know, how a writer for the live stage can, you know, translate into all these other platforms, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm always doing all types of stuff. But yeah, I'm on all the socials, just Idris Goodwin, idrisgoodwin.com, at Idris Goodwin, at Idris. I'm on all the Twitters and everything. And so, you know, I've written over 60 plays. They do them all over the place. Some of them are streamable, you know. So yeah, man, I'm out here, you know, hanging out.
Beautiful. So follow Idris, go see a play, stream one if you ain't trying to leave the house.
You ain't got to leave the house.
You ain't got to leave the house.
I ain't trying to
stream
leave the
that bad boy.
Just stream it, chill.
And as always, you can follow me at Langston Kerman on all of those social media platforms as well. And if you subscribe, if you follow the podcast, write a review, I'll kiss you. I'll kiss you dead on your mouth. That's how I get down. And as always, you can send any conspiracy theories you have to mymommapod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Otherwise, that's it. Bye, bitch.